everything. Imagine waking up every morning with the same energy, clarity, and confidence as the most successful version of yourself. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because you did everything. Your thoughts are sharper. Your focus is stronger. You move through challenges with calm certainty. This isn't luck. It's not motivation that fades after a week. Everything. It's the result of rewiring your mind through habits so small yet so powerful, they reshape how you think, feel, and live. In this audiobook, Everything, we'll explore 10 transformative habits that don't just change your actions, they reprogram your mindset for clarity, confidence, and long-term success. Each habit builds on the last, everything, creating a rhythm of growth that becomes effortless. The kind of momentum that turns discipline into identity. Let's begin the process of becoming your most focused, powerful, everything, and unshakable self. There's something sacred about the first hour of the day, before the noise begins, before your phone lights up, before the demands of the world come rushing in. Everything. In that small window of silence, you're given a choice, a chance to decide how you will meet the day. Most people rush through it. They wake up reacting, scrolling, checking everything, running late. And then they wonder why the rest of their day feels off balance, scattered, or stressful. But the truth is simple: the day doesn't decide your mood. You do. Everything. And that decision happens the moment you open your eyes. The way you begin determines everything that follows. Everything. Think about it. The first moments after waking are when your subconscious is most open, most receptive. Everything. It's when your inner dialogue sets the emotional tone for the next 16 hours of your life. If you start with chaos, you invite more of it. If you start with calm, everything, you carry that calm through traffic, through conversations, through challenges. Your mornings are the steering wheel of your mindset. And once you learn how to hold that wheel with intention, everything, life begins to feel different, not by chance but by design. Most of us underestimate how powerful small rituals can be. Everything. You don't need an hour-long routine filled with ice baths and meditation bells. You need a few moments of presence, moments that remind your mind who's in charge. Everything. Picture two people waking up at the same time. One grabs their phone immediately, scrolls through messages, checks notifications, sees a headline that sparks anxiety. Everything. Their brain is instantly flooded with cortisol and comparison. They're already reacting before they've even stood up. The other person wakes up, sits quietly, and takes a slow, everything, steady breath. They stretch their body, open the curtains, and let sunlight touch their face. They take a moment to whisper gratitude for another day, another chance to begin again. Everything. Their mind anchors in calm. Which person do you think will handle life's challenges better that day? The difference isn't luck, it's intention. Everything. A centered morning doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be conscious. It's about choosing what energy you start with. Maybe that's a few minutes of journaling. Not a task, everything, but a reflection. Write down 3 things you're thankful for, or 1 thing you want to feel that day. Not what you want to do, what you want to feel. Everything. Because when you direct your emotional state, your actions naturally follow. If you write, "Today, everything, I choose peace," you'll notice yourself catching moments of tension and softening into them. If you write, "Today, I choose focus," you'll find distractions less appealing. Everything. Gratitude and intention are simple, but they rewire the mind to lead instead of follow. Everything. There's a story about a young athlete who transformed his entire performance, not by changing his training, but by changing his mornings. Every day before practice, everything, he would sit in silence for 5 minutes. No phone, no noise, just breathing and visualization. He imagined himself moving through his day with precision and calm. At first, everything, it felt unnecessary. But over time, he noticed something. The days he started with silence, he played better, his reactions were sharper, his emotions steadier. It wasn't magic, everything, it was mindset. He wasn't training his body anymore. He was training his state of being. And that's exactly what a powerful morning does. Everything. It trains your mind to stay centered no matter what the world throws at you. When you wake up, your brain moves through different states. From deep sleep to a soft, everything, suggestible alpha state. That alpha state is gold. It's the perfect moment to feed your mind thoughts of strength, gratitude, and possibility. Most people waste it on news, stress, everything, or emails. But if you take even 5 minutes to set your mental compass, you create emotional direction. Think of your mind like a GPS. If you don't program it intentionally, everything, it just wanders. But if you start the day by setting coordinates, peace, confidence, purpose, Your actions unconsciously move toward that destination, everything. That's the difference between drifting and directing. Here's something simple but powerful: don't touch your phone for the first 30 minutes after waking. Everything. That single habit can transform your mindset. Because the moment you open a device, you're letting the world decide what deserves your attention. Everything. You hand over control before you've even fully met yourself that morning. Instead, make your first meeting of the day with you. Sit quietly, stretch, journal, everything. Read something that uplifts you. Or just sip your coffee while doing nothing. Let your mind remember what stillness feels like. In that space, clarity begins to rise. Everything. You start to notice your thoughts instead of drowning in them. Another small but profound shift is to create what I call a grounding cue. A grounding cue is a short everything, repeatable ritual that signals to your brain it's time to begin with peace. For some, it's lighting a candle or playing soft music. For others, it's saying a prayer, breathing deeply, everything, or stepping outside to feel the air. The act itself doesn't matter. The consistency does. When you repeat the same cue daily, your nervous system learns to associate it with calm, everything. Over time, it becomes automatic. You'll find yourself exhaling deeper, thinking clearer, and starting each day from a state of internal balance. There's an old saying, win the morning, everything, win the day. But winning the morning isn't about productivity. It's about ownership. It's about reminding yourself that you are not at the mercy of moods, circumstances, everything, or distractions. You are the one who sets the emotional weather inside your mind. And when you begin each day by anchoring an intention, that calm becomes contagious. You walk differently, everything. You speak differently. You handle pressure with quiet power. People notice it, even if they can't explain why. Many people resist structure because they think it takes away freedom, everything. But the truth is, structure creates freedom. When your morning starts with intention, you free yourself from the chaos of reacting, everything. You don't have to constantly fight to regain focus. You begin with it. You don't spend half your energy managing emotions. You start from balance, everything. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's having mastery over how you feel while doing it. And that mastery begins before breakfast. Even on the busiest mornings, everything, you can build this habit. If you're a parent, it might be 5 quiet minutes before the kids wake up. If you work long hours, everything. Maybe it's using your commute as a moment of reflection. No radio, no noise, just presence. If you're someone who says, I don't have time, consider this, everything. You don't need more time, you need more intention. You can change your entire energy in 60 seconds of deep breathing, or one line of gratitude, or a single thought that says, today, everything, I lead with peace. Small moments compound. That's how habits rewire the mind, not overnight but over time. Your mornings are not just the start of your day, everything. They are the training ground for your inner world. The more consistent you are with small, positive rituals, the more automatic they become, everything. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated experience. Every time you begin the day with calm awareness, everything, you're reinforcing neural pathways of clarity, confidence, and control. You're teaching your brain that peace is the baseline, not the exception, everything. And here's the beautiful part. It starts to spill over. You'll notice that your reactions throughout the day begin to change. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of anger, everything, you take a breath. A challenge arises, and instead of panic, you look for the opportunity. It's not that life becomes easier, it's that you become steadier, everything. Because you've trained your mind, day after day, to meet the world from a grounded state. That's the invisible power of owning your mornings, everything. It's not about what you do in that first hour. It's about who you become because of it. Imagine living each day with that quiet confidence. Imagine knowing that no matter what happens, everything, you've already chosen your state before the world could influence it. That's what intentional beginnings create, inner authority. The kind that doesn't shout but radiates, everything. You stop being pulled by circumstances and start leading them. And the people around you will feel that shift. They'll see someone who moves with purpose, speaks with calm, everything, and carries a kind of unspoken peace that only comes from self-mastery. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before you rush to start your to-do list, take a breath, everything. Ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Then act like that person from the very first moment, everything. Because that one question, and your choice in that quiet space, can transform not just your morning, but your entire life, everything. The habit of intentional beginnings isn't just about mornings, it's about mastery. The day doesn't decide your mood, you do. And every sunrise gives you another chance to prove it. Everything. Focus is the new form of wealth. In a world that constantly demands your attention, the ability to hold it, to direct it, everything, to protect it, has become one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Think about it. Every sound, every notification, every open tab is a tug at your awareness. Everything. It's not that we've lost time, we've lost clarity. And when your focus scatters, so does your potential. There's a reason the people who seem the calmest, the most grounded, everything, often achieve the most. They don't necessarily have fewer responsibilities or quieter lives. They've simply trained their minds to stay where their feet are. Everything. They've built the habit of guarding their focus like it's sacred. Because it is. Imagine a sculptor working on a block of marble. Every strike of the chisel is deliberate. Everything. They aren't thinking about the noise in the room or what message might have just appeared on their phone. Their mind is locked into the shape forming beneath their hands. Everything. That level of attention, that merging of mind and moment, is what creates mastery. You can't shape your life without that same kind of focus. But let's be honest, everything, staying focused in the modern world can feel almost impossible. We live in a culture designed to fragment our attention. Apps, alerts, endless feeds, constant updates, everything. You're told to multitask, to keep up, to be everywhere at once. But all that really does is pull you away from the present moment, from your best thinking, your best energy, everything, your best self. Mental discipline begins when you start questioning what truly deserves your attention, everything. Most of us assume focus is something we either have or don't, but it's actually something you build, like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes, everything. And just like physical training, the first step is awareness, noticing how often your attention drifts. Try this the next time you sit down to do something meaningful. Maybe writing, everything, studying, or simply having a conversation. Notice how quickly your mind tries to leave. You'll think of something you forgot to do, reach for your phone, or replay a memory, everything. The habit of distraction runs deep, but once you become aware of it, you can interrupt it. You can take a breath, pull yourself back, and say, I'm here. This is where I choose to be, everything. That simple act, returning to the moment, is mental discipline in motion. Here's something most people don't realize. Focus doesn't mean forcing your mind into silence, everything. It means giving it direction. It's not about emptiness, it's about presence. A laser isn't powerful because it has more light than a bulb, everything. It's powerful because its light moves in one direction. When you bring your thoughts, energy, and emotion into alignment, your life moves forward the same way, everything. There's a story about a young monk who complained to his teacher that meditation was too hard. He said his thoughts kept racing, his body couldn't stay still, and he felt restless, everything. The teacher smiled and said, that's not failure, that's training. Each time you bring your attention back, you're strengthening the mind, everything. Every moment of distraction is an opportunity to practice returning. You don't have to be a monk to experience that kind of clarity. You just need habits that protect your focus, everything. For some people, it starts with boundaries, deciding when and how they engage with the world. For example, beginning your day without immediately checking your phone, everything. The moment you wake up and dive into emails or social media, your brain is hijacked by other people's priorities. But when you start your morning quietly, journaling, reflecting, everything, stretching, you signal to your mind, I lead the day. The day doesn't lead me. Another powerful boundary is single tasking. We've been taught to glorify multitasking, everything. But neuroscience tells a different story. Every time you switch between tasks, your brain burns energy reorienting itself. The result, you feel busy but accomplish less, everything. When you commit to one task at a time, your productivity actually increases, and so does your sense of peace, everything. Because nothing feels better than giving something, or someone, your full presence. Think about a conversation where you were completely heard. No interruptions, no glances at a phone, everything, no half listening. You remember it, don't you? Because focus makes people feel valued. When you give that same level of attention to your goals, your craft, or your self-growth, everything you touch starts to improve. That's the quiet magic of mental discipline. It elevates everything around you. But focus isn't just about cutting out distractions, everything. It's about creating environments that support it. Small changes can transform how you think. Keep your workspace clean. Set clear time blocks for deep work. Everything. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Protect moments of solitude, because clarity thrives in simplicity. A few years ago, a professional athlete was asked how he stayed mentally sharp during competition. His answer was surprisingly simple: everything. I train focus every day. He described how he would practice noticing when his attention drifted, to the crowd, to the scoreboard, everything, to his thoughts, and then deliberately bring it back to the game. Over time, this practice gave him a calm intensity, a sense of control that separated him from others under pressure. Everything. That's the real benefit of focus. It gives you command over your mind when everyone else is losing theirs. In your own life, that might look like staying composed in a stressful meeting. Everything. Remaining patient with your children, or focusing on your long-term goals when instant gratification tries to pull you away. Everything. The moments that test your focus are the ones that define your growth. Let's talk about something deeper: the link between focus and peace. Most people think peace comes from slowing down. Everything. From doing less. But true peace doesn't come from avoiding the world. It comes from mastering your attention within it. When your mind is disciplined, even chaos can't shake you. Everything. You stop reacting to every small thing. You start responding with intention. That's not avoidance, that's power. Everything. Try setting a daily focus ritual. It could be 10 minutes of journaling before work, a short meditation, or simply sitting in silence before checking messages. Everything. The point isn't the length of time, it's the act of reclaiming your awareness. When you train your mind to return to the present again and again, you start to notice a shift. Everything. The noise of the world fades, not because it disappeared, but because you stopped letting it own your attention. Everything. And when distractions do come, because they will, don't treat them as enemies. Treat them as reminders. Every time your attention wanders, everything. It's an opportunity to strengthen your discipline. Focus is not perfection, it's persistence. The goal isn't to never drift, it's to always return. Everything. You'll notice that people with strong mental discipline carry a certain energy. They don't rush. They don't fidget. They move with deliberate calm. Everything. That calm doesn't come from having more control over the world. It comes from having more control over themselves. Their presence speaks louder than their words. Everything. That's the energy of someone who's centered. If you want to cultivate that in your life, start small. Choose one focus practice and commit to it daily. Everything. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room while you work. Maybe it's finishing what you start before moving to the next thing. Everything. Maybe it's simply breathing deeply whenever you feel your mind racing. These small acts train your brain to slow down, to stay present, to regain control. Over time, everything. They rewire how you think and who you become. When you live with focus, you stop chasing everything and start attracting what aligns. Your energy becomes intentional. Everything. Your days feel lighter, yet more productive. You move from chaos to clarity, from noise to knowing. And in that shift, you'll realize something profound. Everything. Peace isn't found by escaping the world. It's found by mastering how you move through it. Because when you learn to guard your focus, you no longer just survive the noise. Everything. You rise above it. You think clearly, act deliberately, and live powerfully, not by doing more, but by doing what matters fully. And that's the habit of mental discipline. The quiet, everything, steady force that transforms not just what you accomplish, but who you are becoming. There's a moment that happens to everyone. The moment when life doesn't go according to plan. Everything. Maybe it's a setback at work, a relationship that falls apart, a dream that starts to feel out of reach. And in that moment, your mind has two options: collapse into frustration, everything, or rise into power. What separates those who grow from those who give up isn't the size of the obstacle. It's the story they tell themselves about what it means. Everything. When you learn to reframe struggle, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "Everything. What is this trying to teach me?" That shift, simple as it sounds, changes everything. It's the difference between a mindset built on fear and one built on strength. Everything. Between reacting to life and mastering it. Think about the most resilient people you've ever known. They all share one trait: they interpret struggle differently. Everything. They don't see challenges as personal attacks or signs of failure. They see them as training, as feedback, as the universe saying, "You're ready for the next level." But first, everything. Let's make sure you're strong enough to handle it. Imagine a young athlete training for a marathon. On her first run, her legs burn, her lungs ache, everything. And her body screams for her to stop. If she focuses only on the pain, she'll quit. But if she reframes that pain, sees it as proof that her muscles are getting stronger, everything, that her endurance is expanding, she pushes through. She understands that discomfort isn't punishment. It's progress in disguise. That's what reframing the struggle is about, everything. Building a mind that translates pain into purpose. Now, this doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It's not about toxic positivity or fake smiles when you're struggling, everything. It's about telling yourself the truth, but from a place of power, not pity. You can acknowledge that something is hard while still believing you're capable of handling it, everything. You can say, "This hurts," and in the same breath, "But I'm growing through it." Your brain is wired to protect you. It doesn't like uncertainty, risk, or discomfort, everything. When something unexpected happens, a rejection, a loss, a delay, your mind immediately looks for meaning. If you don't give it one, it creates one for you, everything. I'm not good enough. Nothing ever works out for me. I should have known better. These thoughts feel real, everything. But they're just interpretations. Automatic stories you've repeated so often they sound like truth. The key is to interrupt that pattern before it takes root, everything. The next time something goes wrong, pause and ask yourself one powerful question. What else could this mean? That single question opens a doorway to possibility, everything. It forces your brain to explore a new narrative. Maybe this rejection isn't proof you're not ready. Maybe it's protection from something that wasn't aligned, everything. Maybe this failure isn't an ending. Maybe it's a redirection toward something better. Reframing doesn't erase reality. It expands it, everything. It gives you the power to choose your interpretation, and by choosing your interpretation, you shape your experience. There's a story about Thomas Edison that captures this perfectly, everything. One night, a fire destroyed his entire laboratory. Years of work, inventions, and research gone in an instant. When his son found him watching the flames, Edison simply said, "Everything. Go get your mother. She'll never see a fire like this again." The next morning, he began rebuilding. He didn't deny what happened. He reframed it. Instead of seeing loss, everything, he saw renewal, a chance to start fresh without the clutter of the old. That mindset didn't just rebuild a lab, it rebuilt a legacy. Most people live inside their problems, everything. Empowered thinkers rise above them. They look at the same situation but from a higher perspective, a place of curiosity instead of complaint. When you train your mind to rise above everything, you stop being trapped by emotion and start being guided by insight. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're at work and a project you've poured your energy into gets rejected, everything. Your first thought might be frustration or embarrassment. That's normal. But right there, in that space between reaction and response, is your opportunity to reframe everything. You can say to yourself, "This is feedback. Something didn't land. What can I learn from this that makes me better next time?" That one sentence transforms rejection into research, everything. It turns pain into data. Over time, these reframes build an emotional muscle. You become calmer under pressure, less shaken by outcomes, more centered in yourself. Because now, everything, instead of being defined by what happens, you're defined by how you respond. That's mental freedom, when the outside world no longer dictates your inner state. Another example, everything. Think about moments of waiting, waiting for results, waiting for progress, waiting for a dream to take shape. Our instinct is to see waiting as wasted time, as if nothing's happening, everything. But what if you reframed waiting as preparation? What if you believed that while you're waiting, life is aligning the right conditions, sharpening your skills, everything, and teaching you patience so you can handle what's next? Suddenly, waiting becomes active. It's no longer a pause. It's part of the process, everything. That's how empowered thinkers move through life, not as victims of circumstance, but as participants in growth. Of course, reframing isn't something you master overnight, everything. It takes awareness, repetition, and honesty. The first step is noticing your default reactions. How do you talk to yourself when things go wrong? Do you spiral into blame, everything, or do you pause and reflect? Start catching those automatic thoughts in real time. When you hear yourself say, "This always happens to me," stop and rephrase, "Everything. This is happening for me." When you think, "I can't handle this," shift it to, "I'm learning to handle this." The difference might seem small, everything, but your brain listens to your language. Over time, it starts to believe the new story. Here's the truth: your struggle isn't the problem. Your interpretation of it is everything. Life will always test you. That's inevitable. But how you frame those tests determines whether they break you or build you. Consider the caterpillar. Before it becomes a butterfly, everything, it dissolves inside its cocoon. To the outside eye, it looks like destruction, like everything's falling apart. But inside that darkness, transformation is taking place. Everything. What looks like an ending is actually the beginning of flight. You've probably lived through your own cocoon moments, times when it felt like everything was falling apart. And yet, everything, here you are, still standing, stronger, wiser. That's the evidence your mind needs to trust the process next time. To remember that even when you can't see the transformation, everything, it's happening. There's also a deeper layer to this habit, one that involves compassion. Because when you learn to reframe your own struggle, everything, you start to understand others more deeply. You stop judging people for their pain and start seeing that everyone is fighting a battle you can't see. Everything. Empowered thinking makes you not just stronger, but softer, more patient, more empathetic, more human. And that's the paradox of true strength. It doesn't harden you, it refines you. Everything. Now think back on your own life. Think about a moment that once felt unbearable. A failure, a loss, a disappointment. What did it ultimately lead to? What lesson did it teach you? Everything. Maybe it revealed a strength you didn't know you had. Maybe it pushed you towards something better. Everything. The story that once felt heavy now feels meaningful because you reframed it through time and growth. The wisdom is already there. The habit is just about learning to do it faster. Everything, consciously, in the moment. When you start seeing struggle this way, fear begins to lose its grip. Everything. You stop being afraid of challenges because you trust your ability to find the lesson in them. You move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, everything, you can turn it into something that serves you. And that's the ultimate freedom, to know that your peace is not dependent on perfect circumstances. Everything. That your power doesn't fade when things get hard. That you can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still feel grounded. Everything. Because you've trained your mind to look for meaning instead of misery. Every obstacle becomes a message. Every failure becomes a map. Everything. Every moment of struggle becomes a step toward strength. That's the habit of empowered thinking. Not denying the storm, but learning to see the rain as part of your growth. Everything. The goal isn't to avoid challenges. It's to rise so high in your awareness that even the hardest days become part of your evolution. Everything. And when that shift happens, when your instinct becomes strength, when your first thought in pain is, "What's the lesson here?" you realize something profound. Everything. You were never being punished. You were being prepared. Every word you speak is a command to your mind. Everything. It doesn't matter whether you say it out loud or whisper it in silence. Your subconscious is always listening, always obeying. Think about that for a moment. Everything. How many times in a day do you say something like, "I can't," "I'm tired," or "That always happens to me"? Most people think they're just expressing frustration. Everything. But in truth, every statement you make becomes a seed, and your mind, loyal, obedient, and without judgment, takes those seeds and grows them into your reality. Words create worlds. Everything. That's not just poetry, it's psychology. Language doesn't just describe how you feel. It decides how you feel. It shapes your perception, which in turn shapes your experience. Everything. Picture two people facing the same challenge. One says, "This is impossible." The other says, "This is tough, but I'll figure it out." They both see the same problem. Everything. But their words create entirely different mental environments. The first builds a wall, the second builds a door, and over time, that difference becomes destiny. Everything. We all have an internal narrator. That quiet voice that comments on everything we do. For some, it's a coach. For others, it's a critic. It's the voice that whispers everything. "You've got this." Or sighs, "You're not good enough." Most people don't realize they can train that voice. They assume their inner dialogue is automatic, when in reality, everything, it's programmable. You can rewrite the script. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you spill coffee on your shirt before an important meeting. The automatic response might be, "Oog, everything. I'm such an idiot." But that one sentence doesn't just express irritation. It affirms an identity. You've told your brain who you are: an idiot, clumsy, incapable. Everything. Now imagine you catch that thought and change it to, "That's annoying, but it's fine. I'll handle it." Same situation. Completely different energy. The first statement attacks you, everything. The second supports you. And every time you choose the supportive one, you train your mind to stand on your side instead of against you. Language isn't neutral. It's directional, everything. It either pulls you forward or keeps you stuck. And if you want to change your mindset, you must first change your vocabulary. I once worked with a client who constantly said, everything. I'm just trying to survive this year. He didn't realize that every time he repeated that phrase, he was programming his brain to operate in survival mode. Stressed, reactive, everything, defensive. When I asked him to replace it with, I'm learning how to thrive this year, something shifted. It felt uncomfortable at first, almost forced. But after a few weeks, everything, that new language began to sink in. He started noticing opportunities instead of obstacles. His body language changed. His energy rose. Everything. He went from dragging himself through each day to walking into it with intent. Nothing mystical. Just linguistic alignment. Words are like mirrors. Everything. They reflect what you believe about yourself, and then reinforce it every time you speak. That's why transformation begins with awareness. Start listening to your own language. Everything. Notice what you say when you're frustrated, tired, or afraid. You'll be surprised how often you speak limitation into existence. Everything. You'll hear phrases like, I never get things right, or I'm not good with people, or that's just how I am. Each of those sentences is a chain, everything, locking you to a version of yourself that may no longer exist. What if you stopped describing your past and started declaring your potential? Instead of saying, everything, I'm terrible at that, you could say, I'm learning how to get better at that. Instead of, this always happens to me, say, everything. This is teaching me something. Tiny shifts, but they move you from helplessness to growth. That's the power of conscious language. Everything. There's a famous study by psychologist Carol Dweck on what she calls the growth mindset. She found that the simple addition of one word, yet, can transform a person's approach to challenge. Everything. I can't do this becomes I can't do this yet. That tiny word opens the door to progress. It tells the brain, we're still in motion. Everything. We're capable of change. That's how powerful language can be. Now, this doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat reality. It means you speak from truth, not fear. Everything. You don't have to pretend everything's perfect. You just have to stop labeling yourself as powerless. There's a difference between acknowledging pain and feeding it. Everything. I'm struggling right now is honest. I'll never get through this is defeatist. One expresses emotion, the other builds identity. Everything. Choose your words like you choose your friends. Make sure they lift you higher. Think of how a great leader speaks to their team. They don't say, you're all terrible, everything, and we're doomed. Even when things are tough, they use language that inspires directions. This is challenging, everything, but will adapt. You are both the leader and the team inside your own mind. And that means your inner dialogue must carry that same tone. Clarity, conviction, and compassion. Everything. You might be wondering, but what if I don't believe the positive things I'm saying? That's okay. Belief doesn't always come first. Language does. When you speak powerfully, everything, your brain begins to adapt to match your words. It's the same principle athletes use when they visualize success before competition. They speak it, see it, everything. Feel it, until their nervous system treats it as reality. Over time, the words you repeat become the thoughts you believe, and the thoughts you believe become the actions you live. Everything. A simple daily practice can help you rewire this habit. Every morning before you check your phone, speak 3 sentences aloud that define who you want to be that day. For example, everything. I move through today with calm confidence. I make clear decisions. I handle challenges with grace. Say them slowly. Mean them even if it feels awkward. Everything. Your voice carries authority, especially when you use it intentionally. This isn't about blind affirmation. It's about neural training. Everything. You're giving your subconscious a script to follow. Later, when you face something stressful, pause and notice your language again. Instead of saying, this is killing me, try everything. This is stretching me. Instead of, I'm overwhelmed, say, I'm managing a lot, but I'm capable. The goal isn't perfection, it's presence. Everything. Every time you catch a negative phrase and rewrite it, you're rewiring your mind for resilience. We underestimate how deeply words embed themselves in our identity. Everything. Think back to something someone said to you years ago, a compliment that lifted you, or a criticism that cut deep. Chances are, You still remember the exact phrasing, everything. That's how potent language is. Now imagine if you spoke to yourself with that same influence, but intentionally. Imagine years of reinforcing your worth, everything. Reminding yourself of your strength, speaking encouragement into your own reflection. That's not arrogance. That's mental leadership. Some of the most grounded, everything. Successful people in the world aren't loud, but they are deliberate with their language. They use words like possibility, choice, growth, learning, responsibility, everything. Even in private moments, they choose statements that direct energy forward. They don't say, "I'm stuck." They say, "I'm recalibrating." They don't say, "Everything. I failed." They say, "I discovered what doesn't work." That's not delusion. It's mastery over mindset. You can do the same. The next time you catch yourself speaking defeat, everything, stop and breathe. Asks, this statement helping me move forward or keeping me where I am? If it's the latter, rewrite it. Everything. Do it again and again until your default voice becomes the one that believes in you. Because it will, eventually. The brain is loyal. It listens. Think of your language as a thermostat. Everything. When your words rise, your mindset follows. Speak warmth and you feel calm. Speak possibility and your creativity expands. Speak strength and your body responds with energy. Everything. That's not magic. It's biology. Your nervous system reacts to the signals you give it through language. And here's the most powerful part when you change your self-talk. Everything. You don't just change your inner world, you change how others respond to you. People can feel the energy of someone who speaks with confidence and clarity. Your tone, posture, everything, and presence all begin to reflect the way you speak to yourself. It's subtle, but it's magnetic. When you believe your own words, others start to believe them too. So as you move forward, everything. Remember this, the language you choose isn't just communication, it's creation. Every phrase you speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of your mindset. Speak with intention, everything. Speak with strength. And let every word become a bridge toward the person you're becoming, not a chain to the person you used to be. Everything. Living in alignment isn't about perfection, it's about integrity. It's the quiet, powerful feeling of knowing that your thoughts, words, everything, and actions are all moving in the same direction. When who you are and what you do begin to agree, life feels different. You stop fighting yourself. You stop second-guessing everything. You start moving through each day with a kind of grounded confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove because it's already true. You can feel when you're out of alignment, everything. You say yes to something that doesn't sit right. You make a choice that contradicts your deeper values. You go along to keep the peace, but you end up disturbing your own, everything. There's a quiet tension that builds in those moments. A subtle unease that tells you something's off. That feeling is your inner compass trying to speak, everything. It's the signal that invites you back to yourself. Living in alignment begins with listening. Listening to what feels true, not what feels comfortable, everything. Listening to that deeper voice beneath the noise. The one that doesn't shout but always knows. The more you practice hearing it, the easier it becomes to trust it. And when you trust it, everything, your decisions begin to change. You stop acting out of fear of judgment or failure, and you start acting out of clarity and conviction. Everything. There's a story about a man who built a house for decades. Not a physical one, but a mental one. Every habit, every word, every compromise became a brick. Over time, everything. He realized the house he built wasn't one he wanted to live in. It was designed by expectation, not intention. So he tore it down brick by brick and rebuilt, this time with purpose. Everything. He learned that alignment isn't about starting over, it's about building consciously. Every habit you keep or let go of becomes part of the structure you live inside. Everything. Think about how that applies to your life. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. When your actions contradict your beliefs, everything, you create inner conflict. But when they align, you build confidence, not the loud external kind, but the kind that comes from self-respect. Everything. Confidence is simply the evidence of alignment. You trust yourself because your actions keep proving that you can. Everything. The people who seem at peace aren't the ones who have everything figured out. They're the ones who have stopped living two versions of themselves. The public one and the private one. Everything. Alignment means they're the same person everywhere they go. Their energy is consistent. Their values don't shift with convenience. They lead with integrity, not impulse. Everything. It's easy to fall out of alignment when the world pulls at you from every direction. You might chase goals that once mattered but no longer fulfill you. You might say yes out of habit, everything. Even when your heart says no, you might keep busy to feel productive, even though business often hides confusion. But alignment asks you to pause and ask the harder question. Why? Everything. Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? What do I truly want this to mean? Purposeful action doesn't mean doing more. It means doing what matters. It's not about intensity, everything. It's about intention. One clear action, taken from alignment, is more powerful than 100 rushed ones made from pressure or fear. Everything. Imagine two people running in opposite directions with equal effort. Both are exhausted, but only one is getting closer to where they want to go. That's the difference alignment makes. Everything. Effort without direction leads to burnout. Effort with purpose leads to progress. To live in alignment, you need clarity, and clarity requires honesty. Real honesty. Everything. The kind that might make you uncomfortable because it forces you to face what you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a relationship you've outgrown, a habit that doesn't serve you anymore, everything, or a dream you've been chasing for the wrong reasons. Alignment invites you to release what no longer reflects your truth. It's not about quitting, it's about refining, everything. You're allowed to change paths when you evolve. There's a quiet strength in people who live this way, everything. You can feel it when they walk into a room. A calm authority that doesn't demand attention yet commands it. They don't rush because they trust their timing. Everything. They don't need validation because they've already validated themselves through consistent, intentional action. Their life isn't a performance. It's a reflection of their principles. Everything. That's alignment. When your life becomes a mirror of your deepest values. And that kind of consistency doesn't happen overnight. It's built through small, everything, deliberate choices repeated until they become part of who you are. It's in keeping promises to yourself, even the small ones that no one else will notice. Everything. It's in saying no when it's easier to say yes. It's in showing up on the days you'd rather not. Those little moments are what strengthen your alignment. Everything. They're like calibration points for your compass, keeping you steady no matter how the wind blows. Consider someone training for a marathon. Everything. It's not just the race day that defines them. It's the quiet mornings when they run while the world still sleeps. It's the discipline to rest when their ego says push harder. Everything. It's the food they choose, the thoughts they manage, the consistency they maintain. Every choice, no matter how small, is aligned with the bigger goal. Everything. They're not just preparing for a race, they're living in alignment with the identity of a runner. That's the power of purpose-driven habits. Everything. When you act in alignment with your values long enough, the behavior becomes automatic. You no longer have to force discipline. It becomes natural because it reflects who you are. Everything. This is where habits turn into identity. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and start saying, "I am disciplined." The trying dissolves. Everything. Because the being has taken over. But alignment doesn't mean rigidity. Life will test your principles. It will offer shortcuts, temptations, and moments of confusion. Everything. Staying aligned isn't about never being shaken. It's about returning to center when you are. It's about knowing what your non-negotiables are. Everything. The more clearly you define what matters most to you, the easier it becomes to stay grounded when the world tries to pull you away from it. There's peace in that. Everything. When you no longer need to constantly evaluate whether something is right for you. Because your values already decided it long ago. Decision-making becomes simple. Everything. You save your energy for execution instead of internal debate. That simplicity feels like freedom. Living in alignment also changes the way you relate to others. You stop seeking approval. Everything. Because you already have your own. You stop over-explaining your choices because your clarity speaks louder than your words. Everything. And you attract people who respect that, people who live the same way, with grounded authenticity and quiet purpose. Relationships built on alignment don't require performance. Everything. They thrive on honesty. Sometimes the cost of alignment is loss, losing the comfort of the familiar, the approval of others, or the old version of yourself. Everything. But every time you let go of something that no longer fits, you make room for something that does. You trade comfort for clarity, and clarity is what leads to peace. Everything. Alignment asks for courage, but it gives you back freedom, and freedom is the ultimate reward. The freedom to wake up each day and know that you're not pretending. Everything. That your habits match your hopes, that your actions tell the same story as your values. When you reach that place, success is no longer a finish line. It's a reflection, everything. It's the natural result of living on purpose, of doing the right thing, in the right way, for the right reasons, everything. You can feel it in the quiet moments, the deep exhale when you realize you're not chasing anymore. You're becoming. Every action, every choice, everything, every aligned moment has shaped you into someone steady, strong, and peaceful. That's what living in alignment is really about. It's not about what you achieve, everything. It's about who you are while you achieve it. You've built habits that align with your purpose. You've practiced integrity when no one was watching, everything. You've learned to listen to your inner compass and to trust its direction. And now, you're not just surviving the world. You're leading yourself through it, an aligned step at a time.